In 1908, the average American worker made around $500 a year, and a car cost $1,000. So a car wasn't something you saved up for. It was something you dreamt about. Something that belonged to rich people, to doctors, to businessmen, not to the people who farmed the land, not to anyone ordinary. But Henry Ford looked at that world and decided it was wrong. He said out loud, in public, on record,
"I will build a motor car for the great multitude."
People laughed. The car industry laughed. His own investors weren't sure what to make of him. But 15 years later, more than half of the cars on the road in the entire world were Fords. But this isn't a story about a man who built a great car. It's a story about a man who rewired the entire 20th century economy and then used that same power to do something that would make him end up in Adolf Hitler's personal library. Henry Ford is one of the most complicated men the car industry ever produced, and most people only know half of the story. So if you like stories like this, like the video and subscribe. Henry Ford was born on July 30th, 1863 on a farm in Springwells Township, Michigan. And from the very beginning, he hated farming. Not because he was lazy or anything, but his mind didn't work that way. While other kids did their chores, Ford was taking things apart. Watches, farm equipment, engines, anything mechanical that he could get his hands on. At 16, he walked to Detroit to find work in the machine shops, and then he became an apprentice machinist. He learned how things were made, and he learned how they could be made better. And by 1891, he had a job as an engineer at the Edison Illuminating Company in Detroit. And that's the company run by Thomas Edison, one of the greatest inventors in history. And then Ford became a chief engineer by 1893. But at night, in a small shed behind his house, he was working on something else entirely. In June 1896, Henry Ford completed his first ever automobile, and he called it the quadricycle. It was a frame fitted on 4 bicycle wheels and a small gasoline engine. And that car was the thing that changed everything for him in the entire industry. Ford tried to start a company in 1899, and he called it the Detroit Automobile Company. He had investors, a factory, a plan, but it failed. The company produced almost nothing and was shut down in 1901. Then he tried again with the Henry Ford Company, and that failed too. And then his investors lost faith in him, and he was pushed out of the company that had his own name on the door. So he left with $900 and the rights to his own name. So while he was failing in business, he discovered something else: racing. Ford built a racing car named the 999, and in October 1902, it won its first race in Michigan. That win got him attention, and that attention got him a new investor. A coal dealer named Alexander Malcolmson put up money to try again. And on June 16, 1903, on his third attempt, Henry Ford incorporated the Ford Motor Company with $28 in cash from a small group of investors. But by the time the company made its first sale, the cash had run down to $300. $300. And that's how close Ford Motor Company came to dying before it even started. So for 5 years, Ford produced a series of different models: A, B, C, K, R, S. Some sold well enough, but none of them actually changed anything. Then in 1908, Ford introduced Model T. And this car had one goal: build a car that ordinary people could actually buy. So the Model T was simple. It was tough, made from vanadium steel, an alloy that was lighter and stronger than the competition was using. And it was designed to be repaired by its owner using simple tools. And also, this car could handle unpaved roads, which was most of America in 1908. And it was priced at $850. The car was still expensive, but the plan wasn't to keep selling it at $850 forever. So regardless, within 2 days of release, Ford had received 15,000 orders. And the funny thing that the real evolution wasn't the car itself, it was what Ford did next. In 1913, Ford opened a new factory in Highland Park, Michigan. Before this factory, Ford workers took around 12.5 hours to assemble a single car. Each worker moved around the car, doing multiple jobs, working in the traditional way craftsman has always been working with. So Ford looked at that and he saw waste. everywhere. He has been studying the efficiency methods of Chicago's meat packing plants, where animal carcasses moved on overhead trolleys past workers who each did a specific cut. So the work came to the worker, and the worker never moved. So Ford applied this logic to car making, and on October 7th, 1913, he introduced the world's first moving automobile assembly line, and the results were immediate. With constant improvement, assembly time dropped from 12.5 hours to 93 minutes per car. So production exploded. And as production went up, the prices went down. By 1916, the Model T cost $360. By 1924, it was $260. A car that had cost a year's salary in 1908 now costs about 3 months' wages. And by the early 1920s, more than half of the cars in the entire world on the road were Model Ts. 15 million Model Ts were produced before the last one was rolled off the assembly line on May 26, 1927. He had built the template for how everything is gonna be made in the next century. But there was a problem. The assembly line was brutal. Workers stood in one spot, performing one simple task thousands of times a day. Every single day. The work that had once taken skill and judgment now took none, and workers hated it. They left in enormous numbers. Ford's annual worker turnover rate hit 370%, which meant that for every 100 workers he needed, he had to hire 370 just to keep 100 on the line. The constant hiring and training was destroying efficiency. And on January 1914, Ford made an announcement that stunned the entire country. He was doubling his workers' wages to 5 hours per day, which was more than twice the industry's average of $2.34 for a 9-hour shift. And then he was cutting the working day from 9 hours to 8 hours. So the next morning, thousands of men were gathering in front of his Highland Park factory trying to get a job. To understand more, Ford's thinking was layered. Higher wages reduced turnover. Stable workers meant fewer training costs, and workers who made $5 a day could actually afford the cars they were making, and it actually worked. Within 2 years of the $5 a day announcement, Ford's profits doubled. More than that, Ford had accidentally invented the consumer's economy. The idea that workers earn enough money to buy the things they are making. The idea of wages and consumption feeding each other. And that prosperity doesn't flow downward. It circulates. And every single economy in the developed world works on that same logic today. And then Ford's worst qualities started to catch up with him. He was brilliant, but he was also stubborn. He was controlling. He was increasingly paranoid. By the mid-1920s, General Motors were eating Ford's lunch. GM's boss, Alfred Sloan, had figured out something that Ford refused to accept. People didn't just want a car that works. They wanted choices, colors, styles, upgrades, a reason to feel that they were moving up in the world. Ford's response was to keep making the Model T, the same exact car, in black. His own son Edsel, who had become the president of the company in 1919, begged his father to update the car, but Ford ignored him. When a senior Ford executive sent a memo in 1926 saying that the company needed a new model urgently, Ford humiliated him publicly and forced him out. And by 1926, GM had overtaken Ford in sales for the first time ever. And then Ford finally gave in. In May 1927, he announced the end of the Model T. He shut down every Ford factory in the world, putting 60,000 workers out of job for 6 months while he designed the new Model A. And this was a brutal, chaotic shutdown that could have been avoided if Ford had listened to his own people years earlier. So the Model A launched in December 1927. 10 million people saw it in the first 36 hours of its public display. Ford had sold 2 million Model A's by mid-1929. He salvaged the situation, but the warning was very clear. The man who had revolutionized the world was struggling to keep up with the world that he himself created. Now, there's a part of Henry Ford's story that is a bit interesting. In 1918, Ford bought a struggling local newspaper called the Dearborn Independent. In 1920, he began publishing a weekly front-page series called The International Jew, the World's Problem. For years, Ford used his newspaper, which I think he distributed for free across all Ford's dealerships in the entire country, to spread anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. And then he published a collection of those articles in a form of a book. And then he made these books free to reproduce so they could spread as widely as possible. And these books ended up in Germany. In 1931, it's said that a reporter traveling to Munich found a large portrait of Henry Ford hanging on the wall above Adolf Hitler's desk. And Hitler told him, "I regard Henry Ford as my inspiration." And this made Ford the only American mentioned by name in Hitler's manifesto, Mein Kampf. Ford eventually issued an apology under legal pressure, and as his car dealerships were getting boycotted across the country. And of course, that was hurting his business. And whether the apology was genuine or not is a question that historians still debate. But what is not debatable is his reach. Ford's anti-Semitic writings circulated in Germany throughout the 1920s and the 1930s, and they were part of the cultural soil in which Nazi ideology grew. And whether you agree or don't, you cannot deny that his reach was incredible. And then finally, Henry Ford died in April 7th, 1947, at his home in Michigan. He was 83, and it's reported that the power went out that night, the river flooded and cut the electricity, and he died by candlelight, the same way people had lived when he was born. By the time he died, the world had been completely transformed by the things he'd built. In the year 1900, only about 8,000 cars existed in the United States. By 1930, there were 23 million registered cars. Then the roads came, then the suburbs, then the highway system, then the motel, the roadside diner, the drive-thru, the whole thing, the entire geography of modern American life. All of it flows from the decisions that Henry Ford made in a small shed in Detroit in the 1890s. He set out to build a great car for the great multitude, and he absolutely did that. And in doing it, he built the 20th century economy. The assembly line he invented is still the basis of how everything gets manufactured in this modern day. The $5 day he announced is still the logic behind every argument about living wage. The Model T was voted the most influential car for the 20th century in 1999, ahead of many cars like the Mini or the Beetle and all of them. And in the same time, the man who built all of that also had a portrait of him on Hitler's wall. The man who paid his workers more than anyone else also crushed unions and used intimidation to stop workers from organizing for years. Henry Ford is not a simple story. The car world has never produced someone quite like him, and probably never will again. And if you like stories like this, the hidden side of cars, the business behind the badge, and the people who shaped the industry, subscribe to the channel, because the car world is full of stories that no one ever heard.